The digger. He's in the Kono region of Sierra Leone. He's been standing in this pit since sunrise. The water comes up to his waist. He's wearing rubber boots that filled up with water hours ago and a shirt that hasn't been dry in days. That's the moment he's been doing this for. The stone he's holding looks like nothing. It has no facets, no shine, no visible value to anyone who isn't looking for it. The man he sells it to will give him about $5. $5. That is the cheapest the diamond will ever be. By the time it reaches a U.S. jewelry store, it will sell for $5,000. 6 different people will get paid along the way, and by the time the buyer sees the price tag, none of them. Not the retailer, not the wholesaler, not the certificate in the box, will know which chain the stone came through. There are about 300,000 people doing this work in Sierra Leone right now. They do it because there is no other work. Some of them are too young to legally be doing it. The man who owns the concession knows. The man who buys the stones knows. Everyone in the pit knows. These pits are the ones that started the conversation 25 years ago about where diamonds actually come from. The conversation produced a treaty and a set of international promises. The pits are still here. The work is still by hand, in waist-deep water for $5 on a good day. He hands the stone to a man called the runner. The runner unfolds a small wad of bills and counts 5 of them into his palm. He doesn't smile. He turns around and walks back to his pit. The runner puts the stone in a paper envelope with several others. Now somebody has to buy it from him. The Comptoir. The next link is called a comptoir, a French colonial-era word that means trading post. In the diamond regions of West and Central Africa, a comptoir is a small office where artisanal stones get bought from runners and consolidated into larger parcels for export. The comptoir buys the diamond from the runner, sometimes from the digger directly. The transactions are in cash. The price is whatever the buyer says it is. A small 1-carat equivalent rough stone gets bought from the runner for somewhere between $30 and $50. The $40 number for this phase is the comptoir's cut after the digger and the runner are paid. A legal Sierra Leonean comptoir is licensed. It pays an export tax. Its parcels go through Kimberley process certification. An illegal one does none of those things. Many comptoirs operate as both, running legal parcels and illegal parcels through the same office, the same buyer, the same day. Smuggling continues to undercut state revenues across the diamond regions. Foreign artisanal miners regularly cross from Guinea and Liberia. High-value stones traffic through porous borders. Despite the Kimberley process and what enforcement exists, smuggling remains pervasive. We're at $45. The diamond is now in a paper envelope, in the duffel bag of someone whose job is to get it out of the country. The border. Diamonds are the easiest illicit good to smuggle that has ever existed. $1 million in rough fits in a coat pocket. They don't show up on standard X-ray. They have no smell. A trained dog can't find them. They don't decay. They can sit in a drawer for 30 years and lose nothing. Our stone leaves Sierra Leone in the duffel bag from the comptoir. The driver takes it across the western border into Liberia, a route that has been used continuously for over 30 years. In the late 1990s, during Sierra Leone's civil war, Liberia exported 31 million carats of diamond to Belgium. Liberia's own mines produced fewer than 200,000. The rest came through that border. The war ended. The road did not. Dubai is where the modern route ends. It is the world's preferred laundering hub for stones that started somewhere they don't want to be from. The contact in Dubai unpacks the envelope on a desk in a hotel room, weighs each stone, and puts them into a velvet pouch that will travel onward to Antwerp by commercial courier. The same kind of courier that moves diamonds for every legitimate jeweler in Europe. By the time he zips the pouch closed, the stone has crossed 4 borders in 3 days. The smuggler in Sierra Leone has been paid. The driver who took it across has been paid. The pilot has been paid. 2 customs officers along the way have been paid not to look. The man in Dubai has been paid. All of them, added together, take about $200 per carat. The stone is now on its way to Belgium, and it is about to receive in the next room the single most important piece of paper it will ever encounter: the Launder. The diamond arrives in Antwerp inside a parcel that does not match the documentation on the parcel. The trick is mixing. The dealer takes the stones from the Dubai courier and pours them into a tray of legitimately sourced rough from a licensed African operation. The whole tray gets parceled together. A single Kimberley process certificate is printed for the parcel. From that moment on, our diamond is, on paper, identical to every other diamond in the tray. The Kimberley process was created in 2003 to keep blood diamonds out of the legitimate market. What it actually checks for is one specific thing: whether the diamond financed a rebel group fighting an internationally recognized government. That is the entire definition. It does not check for forced labor. It does not check for child labor. It does not check whether the parcel was mixed 5 minutes before the certificate was printed. The dealer signs the form. The certificate goes in a drawer. The tray goes into a leather case. The case goes to the next dealer down the hall. For this kind of work, the dealer takes about $500 per carat. That covers his margin, his discretion, and the unspoken understanding that nobody will be asked any questions. The diamond is now, on paper, identical to a stone mined in Botswana. The cutter. About 90% of the world's diamonds, laundered or legitimate, are cut and polished in a single Indian city, Surat, in Gujarat. The industry employs an estimated 800,000 people. Cutting a 1-carat finished stone from a 1.5-carat rough takes 3 to 4 hours of skilled work. A cutter in Surat earns between $200 and $500 per month. For the stone that will sell for $5,000, the cutter who shaped it will earn, for that single piece of work, somewhere between $2 and $3. In 2025, hundreds of cutters in Surat held a strike over unpaid wages. The reporting names suicides, multiple plural, among workers whose families had not been paid for 3 months. The industry's compression of margins during the lab-grown diamond downturn fell hardest on the people doing the actual cutting. None of those costs show up in any wholesale price sheet. The diamond is now polished. It is indistinguishable by any visual or chemical test available to a normal jeweler from a stone that started in Botswana and was cut by a different person in the same building. It will be sold to the same wholesalers. It will end up in the same display cases. The wholesaler. The polished diamond enters the Antwerp Diamond District. The neighborhood is about a square kilometer in size. It handles approximately 85% of the world's rough diamond trade and a significant portion of the polished trade. The wholesaler holds the inventory, vets the quality, arranges certification through a lab like the GIA, and bridges the manufacturing world to the retail world. A standard 1-carat round brilliant cut, VS Clarity G Color stone wholesales for around $1,800. By this point in the chain, the wholesaler does not know, and the wholesaler's documentation cannot say, whether this particular diamond was mined by a digger in Kono or by an industrial operation in Botswana. Both versions of the diamond are in his inventory. They will be sold to the same retailers. The retailer will not know either. The setting is added next. 18-carat white gold fitted to the polished diamond, finished by a metalsmith. About $400 in metal and labor. The ring is now physically complete. The retailer. A finished 1-carat engagement ring leaves the wholesaler at $3,245. It arrives at a retail jewelry store, gets placed in a display case under directional lighting, and gets a price tag of $5,000. $2,200 to the retailer. The biggest single cut in the entire chain. Bigger than the diamond. Bigger than the setting. Almost 1,000 times what the digger in Kono was paid to find the stone. $2,200 pays for the storefront, the staff, the security, the insurance, and the marketing budget that has positioned this specific object as the appropriate symbol of an engagement. The retailer does not know the chain the diamond came through. The buyer does not ask. The Kimberley certificate certifies a journey that may have begun in any of the legitimate sources, or may have begun in a hand-dug pit in Kono, or in a smuggling route through Dubai, or in the Morange fields of Zimbabwe. There is no way by the time the diamond is in the box to tell. The single most successful piece of marketing in modern history, the campaign that made the 4-month salary diamond ring the cultural default, was created in the late 1930s by a New York advertising agency working for De Beers. It is, in a real sense, the reason this entire chain exists, including the parts of it people don't know about. So, there it is. The ring is in the box. $5,000. $5 to a digger in Sierra Leone or somewhere like it. $40 to the Comptoir. $200 to the smuggling route. $500 to launder it into the legitimate market. $300 to the cutter in Surat. $1,800 to the wholesaler. $400 for the gold and the setting. And $2,200 to the retail jewelry store. Most margins in there are reasonable. Some of them are reasonable for the wrong reasons. The cutting is what cutting costs. The setting is what jewelry manufacture costs. The retail store has a real storefront and a real staff to pay. But the rest of the chain, the digger paid $5, the smuggler paid $200, the launderer who took $500 to make all of it look legal, that part exists because somewhere in the late 1930s, an ad agency in New York convinced an entire culture that this object was the appropriate way to ask someone to marry you. The chain followed the demand followed the campaign. Some of the rings in those U.S. display cases came from Botswana. Some of them came from somewhere else. The buyer cannot tell. The retailer cannot tell. The certificate does not say. Somewhere in Kono right now, a digger is standing waist-deep in muddy water, dragging gravel through a handheld screen, looking for the next stone. He'll do this 6 days a week. The diamond he finds will be sold to the United States eventually for approximately 1,000 times what he was paid to find it. That's the ring. See you next time.